I have never met a man so ignorant that I couldn't learn something from him. I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God who has endowed us with sense, reason, and intellect has intended us to forego their use. You cannot teach a man anything, you can only help him find it within himself. In questions of science, the authority of 1,000 is not worth the humble reasoning of a single individual. All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them.
Philosophy, nature, is written in that great book which ever is before our eyes, I mean the universe, but we cannot understand it if we do not first learn the language and grasp the symbols in which it is written. The book is written in mathematical language, and the symbols are triangles, circles and other geometrical figures, without whose help it is impossible to comprehend a single word of it, without which one wanders in vain through a dark labyrinth. Passion is the genesis of genius. The sun, with all those planets revolving around it and dependent on it, can still ripen a bunch of grapes as if it had nothing else in the universe to do. For in the sciences the authority of thousands of opinions is not worth as much as one tiny spark of reason in an individual man. Besides, the modern observations deprive all former writers of any authority, since if they had seen what we see, they would have judged as we judge. It is a beautiful and delightful sight to behold the body of the moon. Wine is sunlight, held together by water. There are those who reason well, but they are greatly outnumbered by those who reason badly. Long experience has taught me this about the status of mankind with regard to matters requiring thought: the less people know and understand about them, the more positively they attempt to argue concerning them, while on the other hand to know and understand a multitude of things renders men cautious in passing judgment upon anything new. Mathematics is the language in which God has written the universe. Measure what can be measured, and make measurable what cannot be measured. My dear Kepler, what would you say of the learned here, who, replete with the pertinacity of the asp, have steadfastly refused to cast a glance through the telescope? What shall we make of this? Shall we laugh, or shall we cry? I esteem myself happy to have as great an ally as you in my search for truth. I will read your work, all the more willingly because I have for many years been a partisan of the Copernican view, because it reveals to me the causes of many natural phenomena that are entirely incomprehensible in the light of the generally accepted hypothesis. To refute the latter I have collected many proofs, but I do not publish them, because I am deterred by the fate of our teacher Copernicus, who, although he had won immortal fame with a few, was ridiculed and condemned by countless people, for very great is the number of the stupid. It is surely harmful to souls to make it a heresy to believe what is proved. By denying scientific principles, one may maintain any paradox. With regard to matters requiring thought, the less people know and understand about them, the more positively they attempt to argue concerning them. Names and attributes must be accommodated to the essence of things, and not the essence to the names, since things come first and names afterwards. See now the power of truth. The same experiment which at first glance seemed to show one thing, when more carefully examined, assures us of the contrary. I've loved the stars too fondly to be fearful of the night. The Bible shows the way to go to heaven, not the way the heavens go. In the sciences, the authority of thousands of opinions is not worth as much as one tiny spark of reason in an individual man. We cannot teach people anything, we can only help them discover it within themselves. Philosophy is written in that great book which ever lies before our eyes, I mean the universe, but we cannot understand it if we do not first learn the language and grasp the symbols, in which it is written. They seemed to forget that the increase of known truths stimulates the investigation, establishment and growth of the arts, not their diminution or destruction. The sun, with all the planets revolving around it, and depending on it, can still ripen a bunch of grapes as though it had nothing else in the universe to do. Measure what is measurable, and make measurable what is not so. In time you may discover everything that can be discovered, and still your progress will only be progress away from humanity. The distance between you and them can one day become so great that your joyous cry over some new gain could be answered by an universal shriek of horror. I have been in my bed for 5 weeks, oppressed with weakness and other infirmities from which my age, 74 years, permits me not to hope release. Added to this, prodolor. O misery, the sight of my right eye, that eye whose labors, dare I say it, have had such glorious results, is forever lost. That of the left, which was and is imperfect, is rendered null by continual weeping. And, believe me, if I were again beginning my studies, I should follow the advice of Plato and start with mathematics. The increase of known truths stimulates the investigation, establishment, and growth of the arts. Who indeed will set bounds to human ingenuity? Who will assert that everything in the universe capable of being perceived is already discovered and known? I think that in the discussion of natural problems we ought to begin not with the scriptures, but with experiments and demonstrations. To our natural and human reason, I say that these terms large, small, immense, minute, etc. are not absolute but relative. The same thing in comparison with various others may be called at one time immense and at another imperceptible. In the future, there will be opened a gateway and a road to a large and excellent science into which minds more piercing than mine shall penetrate to recesses still deeper. To me, a great ineptitude exists on the part of those who would have it that God made the universe more in proportion to the small capacity of their reason than to his immense, his infinite, power. Surely it is a great thing to increase the numerous host of fixed stars previously visible to the unaided vision, adding countless more which have never before been seen, exposing these plainly to the eye in numbers 10 times exceeding the old and familiar stars. The sun with all the planets around it, and depending on it, can still ripen a bunch of grapes as though it had nothing else in the universe to do. You cannot teach a man anything, you can only help him find it within himself. To apply oneself to great inventions, starting from the smallest beginnings, is no task for ordinary minds. To divine that wonderful arts lie hid behind trivial and childish things is a conception for superhuman talents. The greatness and the glory of God shine forth marvelously in all his works, and is to be read above all in the open book of the heavens.